He basically owns the distribution rights to HP and Cisco routers and fax machines. This is how old this was, 1997. And he was about to become the telecom guy. He was going to launch mobile phones all over the Middle East and North Africa. He was going to launch internet in the Middle East. He was going to be like the tech guru of the Middle East. And he offered me a job to be his office manager.
Which was way below her pay grade.
Yeah. And I'm like, I had like a master's degree in communications. I worked for a Fortune 500 company. And so I was like, I went home that night to my dad. I'm like, Dad, like, am I going to be a secretary? Like, I moved to Egypt to be a secretary. Like, this is terrible. Like, I'm overqualified. This isn't the right role for me. I can't find a job. And your identity is a lot connected to your job. So I'm like, what am I going to do every day? Like, and my dad basically said to me, you know what? You just moved here. You don't know anybody. He is one of the most powerful people in the Middle East. If you get a chance to work to someone close and be close to the sun so you can learn.
Proximity.
You should take this job, put your head down, put in the hard work, prove to him that you can do more than what he's hired you to do. So you got to find a way to add value to him and add value to his company and put your head down and listen and learn. I was so upset with him that was his idea, but he had the vision, like Keven had a vision, and I listened to him. And the next day, much to my chagrin, I went back. Next day, accepted the job, and I started. And I sat outside his office, answering phones, scheduling meetings, welcoming guests, getting coffee. Like, just, I was like, you got to just do the work.
Hello, hello, Heal Squad. Welcome back. Happy to be back with you today. I have a very special guest in studio, and I'm not talking about Keven, but Keven is here as well.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello, honey. We're going to start with our quote of the day, friends, because it comes from our guest. Good things come over time by making small steps of progress and doing them consistently. That is from my friend Maha Abouelenein. Abouelenein. My God. For all the people who butchered my last name growing up, forgive me, Maha. Heal Squad, like I said, we have an incredible guest today who has worked with some of the biggest brands in the world, from Google, Netflix, Audacity, Kareem, so many more. She's a strategic communication expert, entrepreneur, and CEO with quite the decorated career and a work ethic you couldn't believe. We're going to dive into her background as a caregiver. She's not just an entrepreneur and somebody to marvel at in the business world. She's also an incredible human who was a caregiver to both of her parents in Egypt while creating a high-powered career. The work ethic of new generations is what we're going to be talking about, and what it really takes to work under pressure, because she surely knows how to do that. This one is a jam-packed, massive takeaway episode I hope you guys are going to enjoy. So without further ado, Maha, you just wrote this book that I am obsessed with and love called The 7 Rules of Self Reliance. That is, I think, an essential read for all humans. I feel like you were speaking to me in moments where I needed to be reawakened to my old self that got me to these places that got a little dusty and tired. So she wrote this book, How to Stay Low, Keep Moving, Invest in Yourself, and Own Your Future. And I think it's, like I said, it's a must read. But what I love is we're not just talking how to be a successful businesswoman. You're also sharing how to be a successful person at home with the people that you love. And you know that I've gone on the journey too, but you were doing it while you were building your career, which is so much more admirable, I think, because there's nothing harder than you're trying to get your ship to take off and you're like, shit, I have to stay home and take care of my parents. How do I do all of this? So I feel like this is going to be a 2-parter, friends. I think this first part, we're going to talk about a little bit about your background, balancing caregiving and building a career, how you get that work ethic if you maybe didn't have it instilled in you, and so much more. And then part 2, we'll talk about the 7 rules of self-reliance and how you too can be a badass. So let's start.
Hello, Maria. Hello, Keven. Hello,
Hi.
Heal Squad.
So by the way, behind the scenes, guys, Maha, she talks about giving and value culture rather than just hustle culture. You said hustle culture is out, value culture is in.
Yeah.
But what I love, and we were chatting a little bit before we sat down, is that this is just who you are. You give. And I don't know a lot of people who just give without getting, who maybe are like, maybe something good will come out of it. I don't know. But Keven and I have been doing that for a very long time. Mm-hmm. And Keven especially is like the biggest, most ultimate giver. And so I feel like you were so helpful to us on Heal Squad. I'll never forget, we were in our basement in Connecticut during COVID with Kelsey, and you would have sessions with us, and you were just helping us with all of your knowledge because you were working with Gary Vee and just trying to impart as much knowledge on us as possible. So thank you, first of all, for all of that.
You're welcome.
And you practice what you preach, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I think I talk a lot about my story in the book, but also like making deposits, what I call in other people's trust banks, right? If you live with good intentions and you want to do good for people, it will always come back to you, right? And we live in a society today that's based on transactions. Like, I give, I want to get. I give, I want to get. But what if you turned that ship into a different direction and decided, you know what, I want to be a kind of person that brings value to other people's lives? Because when I do that, it ultimately creates value for me because I learn, I get the experience, I grow, and I can have that experience of being a value creator for other people. It's extraordinarily satisfying, like to be good to people. And you don't do it without giving, everything away for free or not doing things that don't devalue yourself. But I want people to think about, how can I create value for other people, whether it's my family, whether it's my friends, whether it's my boss, whether it's a neighbor, because it's the right thing to do. And it always comes back to you.
Always. I will say, when I was first starting out, I was in college, and my cousin had told me about Keven. He was coming back from LA to make this movie in Boston. And I think I've told the story before, Heal Squad. I knew that there was a value to working for free always, because I've always said, endear yourself to the right people and things will happen. There's no way that if you don't give somebody your all, and it's, you got to give it to the right somebody's too.
Exactly.
And so there's a little discernment there, but I knew who Keven was right away. And I worked for him for free, making this movie for months. And I remember trying to bring in some of my classmates at Emerson College who were filmmakers. I was a journalism major. I wasn't even a film major. I'm like, guys, this guy's back from Hollywood and they're making a 35 millimeter film. And this is amazing with stars from Hollywood and all this stuff. And they all said, how much does it pay? And they wouldn't come work on this. And I said, but we'll have reel and we'll have credit. That's like, and again, not even my career path. And none of them did it. And you know what's funny? None of them made it. None of them.
You got to be willing to put in the hard work, right? My dad taught me that when I was young. Hard work always pays off. Like, put your head down, put in the effort. Nobody's an overnight success. Everybody has problems. So you got to really figure out how you can put in the effort, put in the hard work, and create value for others. And you will get the reap of the benefits, but you have to be willing to put in the time. Like, a lot of people have goals and they know what they want to do. They're not willing to close the gap to do them.
Or they also spend so much time wondering if something else is better. Is the grass greener? Could I be doing, better over here and better over there? And then they're so in their head. And sometimes you have the right opportunity right in front of you and you're not giving them. You're not investing in their trust bank.
Yeah.
You're doing just enough and sometimes not even. And we watch that all the time. We're like, my gosh, that's why Priscilla, I was just telling her, I said, she worked till 2 a.m. helping us really hone in on this like delivery of a show that we were building. And it came out unbelievable. And that was because she went the extra mile. Steven went the extra mile. You went the extra mile. Kev, everyone went the extra mile.
Put in the effort.
Put in the effort. You're not going to get what you want if you're half-assing or if you're just, or you have loser energy. I hate loser energy.
Yeah. And I think just to your point about working for free, I always kind of put it in the frame of, learning or earning? Is this opportunity giving me a chance to learn or giving me a chance to earn? So sometimes in life, you need to take a job that you really don't want to do, but you know it's going to allow you to get experience. It'll allow you to learn. You're not going to probably make the money you want, but the value of the learning is going to get you as a stepping stone to the next step. And sometimes in careers, you have to make decisions to take on jobs or projects or opportunities based on what you're going to earn. So think about it that way. Like, am I getting an opportunity to learn? Then it's a hell yeah. Then I got to take it, because that's an opportunity I'm not going to get somewhere else.
Especially also if you're transitioning maybe and you don't know a lot about this arena, you have to put yourself in a position to learn.
Yeah, and if you need to educate yourself, like, I want to make a decision if I should do this or not. I need to get more educated. I need to learn more information to make a good decision.
Yeah.
And so you got to put a little bit more time and effort to getting the information you need to make that decision.
So we're a few minutes in and we already have so many bombs. It's like learn or earn, right? Hustle culture out, value culture in.
Making deposit in other people's trust banks. I have it
That's
all
my
written down.
favorite.
You have to.
That's my favorite. I also know that you've done this from experience. Like you're like us. We pay to work sometimes.
Yep.
And you took on, I remember there was this job with this guy. I mean, I read the book so long ago now, but there was a job with this guy, and was it in like
telecommunications.
Yes.
I'd moved. So I was I born and raised in Minnesota, small town in Minnesota. Grew up living in Minnesota my whole life, undergrad, high school, college,
First
everything.
generation Egyptian.
First generation. My parents had moved here to go to school and just end up staying in the U.S. My dad was the dean of the business school at Mankato State, University of Minnesota. And at 27 years old, my mom had MS. My parents decided we're moving back to Egypt. And so
How old were you again?
I was 27. Born and raised, lived in the U.S. my whole life. 27, my parents we're moving to Egypt. I'm like, okay. Like, I'm from Egypt. I'm 100% Egyptian. Both of my parents were Egyptian, but I'm born and raised in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Like, it's like you going to live in Egypt, Maria. Just go. Like,
yeah.
I don't really speak the language. I don't have friends. I know my cousins.
And you're 27.
You're
It's not
27,
like you're like
so you're like, you're a
10.
professional. Like, I had been working at General Mills. I had a really cool job working in sports marketing, Wheaties, Olympics, NBA, All-Star, NFL. Like, I had the coolest job on the planet. And my mom was quite sick. And, she had MS since I was 14. I'd been taking care of her. And I wasn't just going to let my dad take care of my mom alone. My sister was married and she was settled and she had kids. So she was staying in the U.S. So I was the one, I'm like, I'm going to go with you, Dad. I'm not leaving you to take care of Mom by yourself. So at 27, I moved to Egypt. I'm like, okay, great.
Why did they want to move to Egypt, though? Was there a big why?
They just wanted to go home. They ended up coming to the U.S. to study and ended up being here for 40 years. They didn't expect to stay that long.
I just love that you were so on board with it. Like, I would need like a real reason at that point to be like, no, guys, like my whole life is like
here,
starting here.
Wait, yeah, but
what's like
you put your whole life on hold for your mom. Yeah. We stopped everything.
Yeah,
and that's what I love about you, Maha. And I think that's the most special people in the world are the ones that have all the business stuff going, but then they'll take the pause and be human. I always say, if you want to make it everything in your life, if you have a lofty dream, everything in your life, everything you do every day should somehow tie back to your dream, with only one exception: the health and well-being of your loved ones.
You have to.
And that's when you pause. But if you do that, right, you had your stuff so in order, it wasn't easy emotionally, and I'm sure it wasn't easy, but you had all those tools where you could go, great, I'll go to Egypt. And
it was a no-brainer that I had to go. Like, it wasn't a question of, am I going or not? It was like, Dad, I'm coming with you.
Yeah.
And it wasn't so much I was worried about what I was going to, because I'd been to Egypt before on vacations, and my family did a good job of letting us visit a lot. So I knew the culture. I knew Egypt. It wasn't like completely foreign to me. But I was also kind of mourning what I was leaving behind, like my childhood, growing up, familiarity, my friends, everything I knew was going to change. So at 27, I get to Egypt. I'm a professional. Like, I don't have high school friends. I don't have college friends. I don't have professional work friends. Finding friends at adult is a difficult thing to do. So I'm 27. I moved to Egypt.
Adult at that time.
Yeah.
Very hard.
1997.
No social media.
Wow.
And people were different. That's a good point. And people, because I'm her, I did this. And people were different back then. It was like you had your friends from home or you had your friends from college. That was it. Today, everyone is friends. back then it wasn't like that.
No, you had to have in Arabic, your shilla, like the group of people that you grew up with, your crew.
Yep.
So I couldn't break into anybody's crew because I didn't go to school with them. I didn't have those things in common. So I'm like, okay, I need to get a job. I'm either going to work at a Pepsi, Coca-Cola, P&G, Unilever, like look for an American company in Cairo. That way I'd feel familiar with American culture and business. Or I work for a local company. And so I start to interview and I can't find a job. And there's a billionaire who runs, he basically owns the distribution rights to HP and Cisco routers and fax machines. This is how old this was, 1997. And he was about to become the telecom guy. He was going to launch mobile phones all over the Middle East and North Africa. He was going to launch internet in the Middle East. He was going to be like the tech guru of the Middle East. And he offered me a job to be his office manager.
Which was way below her pay grade.
Yeah. And I'm like, I had like a master's degree in communications. I worked for a Fortune 500 company. And so I was like, I went home that night to my dad. I'm like, Dad, like, am I going to be a secretary? Like, I moved to Egypt to be a secretary. Like, this is terrible. Like, I'm overqualified. This isn't the right role for me. I can't find a job. And your identity is a lot connected to your job. So I'm like, what am I going to do every day? Like, and my dad basically said to me, you know what? You just moved here. You don't know anybody. He is one of the most powerful people in the Middle East. If you get a chance to work to someone close and be close to the sun so you can learn.
Proximity.
You should take this job, put your head down, put in the hard work, prove to him that you can do more than what he's hired you to do. So you got to find a way to add value to him and add value to his company and put your head down and listen and learn. I was so upset with him that was his idea, but he had the vision, like Keven had a vision. And I listened to him. And the next day, much to my chagrin, I went back. Next day, accepted the job and I started. And I sat outside his office, answering phones, scheduling meetings, welcoming guests, getting coffee. I was like, you got to just do the work. And for 4 months, I would read every paper going in and every paper coming out. And like, maybe I can make a suggestion, but maybe I just wanted to learn. I just wanted to be a sponge and be like really good at networking with everybody and be a pleasure to work with. So people knew who I was and how to build relationships. Like American business is very much, driven on results and go. And in the Arab world, it's more like have a cup of coffee, have a chit chat, ask about the family, ask about the friends. Don't be quick to close. So I had to take down my speed down 10 notches because I was very American.
Americans
results.
always be closing.
Yeah, exactly. And then after a while, I started to make suggestions to him. And then he was like, sit in the meeting and take notes. And I'm like, now I'm in the meeting, now I'm in the room. And then I just kept on banging on his door, like, give me a project, give me a chance, give me something that I can do where I can show you what I can bring value to the company in addition to my current job, which I'll do. So then
I feel like there was a speech, right?
No,
was it him or was it somebody
the
else?
Prime Minister.
Oh, okay.
So then I basically told him, he said, I'm going to apply to win a license. So when you apply to win a license, like an AT&T or Verizon in a country, you have to write a commercial tender, which is like the sales and marketing plan, a financial tender, the offer, and a technical offer of what the microwave stations and the mobile network will look like. Something very technical that I know nothing about. And so he's like, fine, Maha, you want a chance? You write the sales and marketing plan. I'm like, okay, I got this. And he basically, I'm writing the sales and marketing plan to launch an AT&T or Verizon. What's the prepaid? What's the postpaid? What's the shops? What's the marketing campaign? What do the stores look like? What's the ad campaign?
And you know nothing.
I know nothing, but I'm like, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to rely on myself. I'm going to go back home.
Because she's what? Self-reliant.
And we won 18 licenses. And
how did you do it? How did you figure it out?
Well, I just studied. I guess I just figure if I kept on asking myself, if not me, who? Okay, if he thinks I'm good enough to do this or I'm ready enough to do this, why wouldn't I believe I'm ready to do this? And so I'm like, that was an aha moment for me. I'm like, he thinks I can do this, then I better go do this. And we won. We kept on winning. I ended up running the largest IPO of the history of Egypt with him.
I have the chills.
We ended up having the largest acquisition in the history of Egypt. After 4 years of grinding for him, he became my business partner. We ended up launching Weber Shandwick, a big PR firm in the Middle East. I opened 18 offices. We did a deal. And he's my mentor and someone that I really served and learned a lot from. But the message is you got to put in the hard work. You got to be humble. You got to put aside your ego. You got to be willing to do stuff you don't want to do. And that, me accepting the job to be the office manager for him, changed the whole trajectory of my life.
Can I just stop for 1 second and say this? Imagine you take a job that's well beneath you in your qualifications and you leave beyond overqualified, beyond what you were before, right? Like think about, you had to go learn something you had no idea how to do that's actually really hard and really complicated. So you ended up, think of the energy transaction that just took place, right? You think you're overqualified, you go in and you start so low, but then you end up leaving so fucking high.
Yeah, because you first of all, when you're being self-reliant doesn't mean you don't ask for help. So I ask for help. Like I have to learn how to use resources available to me. Like this isn't like there's a playbook. There was no internet, folks. Like I couldn't Google it. I couldn't chat GBT it. This is 1997. Like I had to like ask people who has experience. What are resources available? Like you find the answers.
Yeah.
You just haven't been asked to do it yet.
Well, that's why where there's a will, there's a way came to be.
100%.
I mean, we don't like it sometimes, but it's true. If you are looking to up your hair game, guys, you know I've been loving Way. They've got an amazing hair quiz on their website that helps you find the perfect products that are tailored to what your hair uniquely needs. Super easy. Just answer a few questions. You'll get some personalized recommendations to elevate your routine. And here's a treat for you because I know you guys would love this. Head over to www.theway.com, THEOUAI. Use the promo code Heal Squad and you get 15% off that order as well. That's The Way, THEOUAI.com. Use the promo code Heal Squad. Now back to Maha. So,
I love Way, by the way.
Isn't it great?
I use it all the time.
Yeah, I am really, really obsessed. So anyhow, I've elevated my hair routine. Hair makes such a big difference. If your hair is not right, your makeup will never be right. Yep. Your outfit will never be right. So I'm a big fan. Okay, so now we have an idea of kind of your background and what career-wise has helped you. We're going to go deeper into that in the second part. But now I want to kind of jump into, you move to Egypt.
Yep.
You start working for this guy.
Yep.
But all the while, you're taking care of your parents. Tell us a little bit more about what was going on, because your dad also needed you too.
Yeah, so when I was 14, my mom was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and it's a slow progression where your brain stops sending messages to its muscles. So you have trouble walking, then you're on a walker, then you need to be in a wheelchair, then you need to be fed, and you need to be bathed, and you need full-time care. And when we lived in the U.S., basically it was me and my dad just taking care of my mom and helping her to the bathroom, helping her to take her showers, feeding her. I would go to college and just set out her food or her tea in a straw so she can sip it, because she really enjoyed her cup of tea, but she couldn't really do it anymore. So when we moved to Egypt, my dad had taken a job and he had a role, so I was really taking care of my mother, and we never had help. I was doing it. I was waking up every 2 hours in the middle of the night to turn her because she had bed sores. And my dad started limping and started tripping, and my dad was a big guy, very athletic. My dad was the life of the party. All my friends like to hang out with my dad before they wanted to hang out with me.
Sounds like my dad.
My dad is the best, so much fun, sports guy, music guy. He would pick up my friends from the airport that come visit from Egypt and take them out a night on the town. I wouldn't even see them. I'm like, Dad, they're my friends. He was so much fun, so full of life. You knew when my dad walked in the room, he's big belly, big laugh, everyone knew it. And then he started tripping and having problems. And, in Egypt, they have healthcare, but it's not really the best. And I'm like, Dad, we're from Minnesota. We have the Mayo Clinic. It's the best medical facility in the world. You should just go find out, because I thought it's his knee. Then I thought it was his back. So he comes to Rochester Mayo Clinic and he gets diagnosed with ALS, which is Lou Gehrig's disease, which is terminal. Unlike multiple sclerosis, which is not terminal but debilitating, ALS is you will die. You're basically, your brain stays intact, opposite to MS, and your whole body becomes a coffin, and everything starts shutting down starts at your feet and moves its way up. So you can't go to the bathroom, then you can't digest food, then you can't swallow, then you can't smile. I mean, then it works its way up your body. And I became very, very, very close to my dad because my mom had been sick since I was 14. So I was like, me and my dad were like the closest of friends. And I would always ask him, how was your day at work when he would come home? Because my mom couldn't do that because she got sick. So I became very tight to my dad, and we'd cook together in the kitchen. And when he got sick, I was really devastated when he called from Mayo Clinic and said, I have this diagnosis. I have a death sentence. I'm coming home, going back to Egypt. I was like, we got this, Dad. Like, come on back. And I was dying inside. Like, what are the chances that I have two parents with neurological diseases? And I was 27. I moved to Egypt. My dad got diagnosed when I was 34. So I'm still young. And I'm just trying to work and make a name for myself and make friends and be in the business community and take care of my mom full time. And now I got to take care of two very, like they need a lot of help.
Alone.
I'm by myself, and my sister's in the US. I'm calling her all the time. Amy, you got to come. So she'd get on a plane and come whenever I asked her to. She had two small children, so that wasn't an easy ask, but her husband was very understanding and took care of them. And at the time I was like, okay, I'm going to need to get help. Like, I can't pay for the bills, make all the medical decisions, have a full-time job. Sometimes I have to travel for work. I'm going to need to get help. And at one point, I took out the beds from the bedroom. I got hospital beds. I put each parent in a room so that they can have 24-hour nursing care, 2 nurses per shift, 3 shifts a day, 3 8-hour shifts. And I went on my computer and I made like a little table, like a little chart on like a Kinko's, and I printed it out.
Everyone's
with like
med schedule,
input, output, what other vital signs. And I told each nurses, I went to the store and I got all this ER equipment. So they wear scrubs. And I'm like, okay, we're going to have a little makeshift hospital at home. I went to the ER and I got the best nurses that were making like maybe $1 a day. And I tripled their salaries. Will you come work from home from my house? And created a system for them. And I got a full-time cook that would blend my parents' meals. Both my parents had feeding tubes. At the end, my dad had a trach. So ended up really, I don't know how I did it, but I did it. Like, you just found a way to like win every day, take one day at a time. I wanted them to live with dignity. I wanted them to have care at home. I wanted the dog on the bed. Yep. I wanted their favorite blankets on the bed. I'm like, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it together. And
by the way, it's still hard with all the help. But I also wonder if it wasn't a weird blessing that you were in Egypt because you could afford
100%
the care. Because in America, that's
I would have never been
impossible.
able to afford that. In the US, we didn't have home health care at all. Insurance, people, car, like it wouldn't have worked. And so, yeah, I mean, that's a blessing of that. And then we lived in a building where the traditions in the Middle East is the family is in a complex. So my aunt was downstairs, my other aunt. So they could come up and, have a cup of tea and hang out with my mom, give me a break to go do things. But yeah, I mean, full time, my dad, he was given a year to live and he got about 2. And then he passed away. And then a year after my dad died, my mother passed away. So I think she had MS for 22 years. She hung on, but I feel like she knew when my dad had gone that she didn't want to stay. 2 weeks after my dad passed, she went to the hospital and she was on a downward spiral right after that and until she passed. And I buried both of them like with a little over a year apart.
Unbelievable. You're very strong and incredible. I've like been holding back tears for like the whole story because it's so sad and so hard. And I don't want to cry, but I'm sorry.
No, it just, I think, Maria, when...
it's a lot for one person.
It was a lot. And like I said, when I think about it now, and I'm going to just try to hold back the tears too, like I'm proud that I did that for them. Like I was a good daughter. Like when I think about a lot of my experiences and the things that I'm proud of in my career that everyone's like, oh, she did this and that. I'm like, you know what? I was a good daughter. And I feel that everything good that happens to me is because my parents are looking down on me and they're proud of me. I never, ever, ever had my dad say to me, I'm proud of you.
No regret.
All the good things that happened in my life happened after they passed away. Like I became something, I did something meaningful in my career and myself. And so I feel like if you get a chance to take care of your parents, like they gave me everything. It was not, I didn't even hesitate. Like Amy's like, we should, nobody in our lives, a lot of people would ask me like, why don't you put him in a nursing home? Or why don't you? I'm like, I would have never, it never even crossed our minds like that we wouldn't take care of our own. It never crossed our minds to put them somewhere. I'm like, I would never do that. Like, I'll try to bring everything in-house that I can. And I actually avoided putting them in hospitals because you can pick up infections in hospitals. And
you can't have the dog in the bed and just all the
you
things
can't
you're
have
saying.
the care that you need.
Right.
Like, and
hospitals, they're not designed really for healing. You've got the fluorescent light. Like, the hospital's still open. So I know from all my work in hospitals, you think like, oh, it's 8:00 at night and it's everyone sleeping. No, hospital's still going every 2-3 hours. So I've even had nurses, when I used to go out to nurses and say, please, when my dad was sick, can we just keep the voices down? They're like, no, we're working. And they're like, okay. So home is where you can heal.
And it's also where for the patient too, like if they feel that they mentally, like a lot of it's psychological, like if they feel happier and comfort of a home, it's much different than being in a hospital. You feel sick, you feel something's
we know this
wrong
from our
with you.
dogs.
I know.
They would, say, the good vets would say, take them home. They'll get better at home.
At home.
Because they're happy. They're not scared looking in this, with all these different things going on.
I spent so much time at the hospital because, they do need some medical care that requires intervention where I did take them to the hospital. Yeah. But I became very friendly with the receptionist that was working in the ER because they have very strict hours and you can't get in after hours. And I'm like, I can't just let them sit there by themselves. And the nurses do the rounds and leave them for most of the time alone, which was killing me. Yeah. So then I became very friendly with the doctors, and then pretty soon they would let me like hang out in the doctor's lounge, and then some of the doctors would come in and say, well, where do you practice?
Oh, my God.
Where do you practice? Because you know what I would do? Because then the internet came in, I would spend a lot of time doing research, because if I'm making their medical decisions on their doses and their medications and we're trying things, I need to know what I'm doing. And so I would study, and I know how to read charts, and I know how to check their vitals, and I know what the numbers mean. And so then they said, well, where do you practice? I'm like, oh, I'm a visiting resident from the US. Like I was just joshing around with them. But then I knew my shit. Like I knew I had to know what I was doing because I felt such a responsibility that I could mess up their life. Like what if I do something that's not the right decision for them? And so it was also a huge amount of accountability and responsibility. But so if I had to take them to hospital, I became very warm and friendly with them, and you have to build the right relationship so they'll let you in.
I just think, I think you did what we all should do, which is take care of our parents in that way. And then if you have children, I always emphasize people bring them in on the process, because someday they'll be doing that for you. I kind of think that's why we're here. Your parents brought you in, you see them out, but what I would love to do is we close this out, Maria, so we have to close out this episode. Mm-hmm. But, is there any way to summarize? Because I think I could summarize all the accolades or the things that you applied just in the story of taking care of your parents. There's a whole other story of going over to Egypt and starting over. And I think we got some of that. But you thought out of the box. You just... could you summarize that for us in terms of what it was, what the things that someone else could apply that's in this situation? Because I'm hearing the things that I know. I'm like, oh, okay, I know.
Yeah, well, we did the same stuff.
What would work? You
never know what you're capable of until you're kind of forced into that situation, right? Yeah. Be resourceful, ask for help. Like I don't, my book is about self-reliance, but it's not about being independent. So I'm like, I ask for help. Like, guys, I need a timeout. I need a break. I need to a dance party. I need to go out with my friends. I need to get away from this situation. Like you can't, it's like when they tell you on the airplane, put your mask on before you other somebody else. Like if I don't take care of myself, I certainly won't be able to take care of them. Yeah. So knowing what my limits are and knowing okay, I need a break, or I'm really drained, or I got to be the fun one today. So every time I would walk into my mom's room, I'm like, hi, my name is Maha hon, I'll be your hairstylist for today. And like, let's kind of, bring the energy, bring the fun. Like, I got to paint her nails. Like, what color should we do? Like, you got to find the small things are the big things. And if you can do that for someone that you love and care about, that's what matters. Like, then you can go to bed at night knowing that you did the right thing. And there's a saying, doing the right thing is always the right thing. And like, everybody who's listening can do it. Everyone who's listening has never been asked to do it yet. And when you are in a situation where you get asked to do something you've never done before, or something that's emotionally difficult to deal with, you find the strength, and you need to just go deeper into yourself and rely on yourself. Because if other people think you can do it, then you are the first person who should be convinced that you can do it.
And I think you live the rest of your life with your head high.
Oh, yeah.
Proud. Like, hey, I wish they lived longer. You did it. Marie did it. I did it. I feel so good for what I was able to do with my dad at the end. I did everything that I could do at that age. And I feel so good. And I remember feeling bad for my other siblings who weren't part of it. Like, I actually feel bad for you because you're going to regret this. And then you have beautiful experienes. Did you not have beautiful experiences with them in those?
Yeah. And I feel like, I'll tell you just a quick story because I know we need to wrap up. But my dad got, one night he was very, very sick. And he pulled me and my sister in because my sister was visiting, and he sat us down on the bed next to him and he said, listen, tonight I'm going to die. What day is it? And I'm like, December 7th. And he's like, I'm going to die tonight. And if I do, I want you guys to let me go. Like, don't try to save me. Don't resuscitate me. I just feel like it's the time. And can we talk about a few things? I want to go through some things I want you guys to have and to put away and blah, blah, blah. And that night, no, I couldn't go to bed. I wasn't going to sleep because he's told me that. So I was like, oh, well, my sister and she said, let's just take turns. And I'm like, okay, it's fine. And anyways, hours later, he went into a coma. And then he started turning blue. And then the nurses were like, it's happening. And I'm like, oh my God, like, I can't believe this is happening right now. And so I was like, we need to do something. And we called several ERs, and none of the hospitals would come pick him up because they said he would be dead on arrival. Like, we're not going to risk moving a patient that's in that state. And he started having like sepsis, where your organs start to shut down, and he started turning blue. And I called so many of his doctors to come help. And one of his doctors came, the sleep apnea doctor came, the one that was helping him sleep at night with the breathing machine, intubated my dad. And he's like, I'm going to try. And nothing was working. Everyone in the house now started to cry. My sister's like, let's call my dad's family. Let's tell them this is it. It's happening. And I just kept on pushing. I was persistent. I'm like, I don't think it's tonight. I don't think it's tonight. Just one more time. Let's just keep pushing. Let's just keep trying. And if it doesn't work, we'll let him go. And my sister's like, you're really wrapped up. Like, you're too emotional. Like, this is it. This is God's will. This is nothing none of us can do. And my dad got intubated, and he turned blue, and he was losing his pulse. And we got him to the hospital, and the doctor said he might be brain dead because the oxygen, all this kind of stuff, he might not make it through the night. And I said, okay, well, if that's his fate, that's his fate. The next day he woke up, and he gave us this grin, like, what did you guys do? Like, I told you not to save me. My sister's like, I told you Dad said that. But then my dad had another year.
Wow.
And on that year, we did a farewell tour. We took him to the States. He got to go see all of his friends. We went through everything in his closet. He got to put who he wanted to give things to. We had one of the best years of his life. And he was grateful that he had that time. So he went from being angry, from being sick and about to die, to probably being just, everything tasted good. Everything looked good. And he was like, I got another leash, almost another year.
Wow.
And I tell that story because I feel like you don't know it's your time until it's your time, and do what you can. So those small things I was doing for him, we came to the US and he got to see all of his friends and got to go everything himself through his closet and give everything the way I want my watch to go to my sister and give this to my college buddy. And he,
And sometimes when they think it's their time, I say this too. Again, I'm sorry if I offend anyone when I bring it back to animals, but baby, our Bichon, everyone thought it was her time.
Yeah.
It just seemed like it. And she was seeming like it.
Yeah.
When dogs stop responding.
Yeah.
And I said, no, we got one more in us. And we fought through.
Oh,
and
Keven
we got
slept.
what?
I mean, he was at the vet's office all day.
But how long did we get?
All
Were 2
night,
years
every
after
day.
that?
Yeah,
Well,
that sounds like
we
something
celebrated
I would do.
her sweet 16 and she lived 2 more years.
So anyway, but the point is, it's like sometimes then it does come down to you as the individual where you trust that inner instinct which you had, which is like, no, we got one more.
Yeah, because I'm
You
hearing
know?
the story and I'm like, oh no, but he said don't let me
Yeah,
go.
but
let
then,
me go.
Yeah.
But you knew something.
Right. Sometimes you just know better. And so that's just another great lesson if you have that
No
instinct.
regrets. No regrets. So when he passed, when he finally took his last breath, I was accepting it because I was like, you know what?
We did it.
It was time. It was time, and we got that extra
amazing.
year, and I live with no regrets, knowing that I did what I could for them, and that's something that I think everyone needs to think about. Like, you don't want to have that regret. Like, I wish I would have done this, or I wish I would have said that. Like, take the time.
Did you feel like your health suffered taking care of them?
Of course it did. I mean, I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't taking the best care of myself. I wasn't eating probably properly.
You were in your 20s at this
I was
time?
in my I was from
20s,
27
30s.
until 36 with that kind of that
Oh,
period.
sorry,
but-
Coach Kev goes, you can handle it. You're at that age. You're strong.
Yeah.
Of course you're going to, of course you redline and you're
But
gonna,
did you have anything major happen after with your
no,
health?
I didn't have any health issues.
Thank
No, thank
God.
God.
Well,
No,
again, you can handle it in your
Yeah.
20s. I mean, I think,
Thank God.
and lastly, what I hear is the thinking out of the box is to say, hey, you know what? We can set up triage here. Why can't we turn this bedroom into a hospital room? And, I had a group of a big Italian family, and the grandmother, like everyone lived at the grandmother's house all through their college careers. She took care of everybody. She fell ill. She went to a nursing home, and they would say, oh, it's just so hard to get her out because she's handicapped. And so it's really tough. And so literally there's about 60 of them. I said, can everyone just give me 50 or $100? And why? I'm like, I'm going to buy a used handicap van. And I'm like, you just insure it. And everyone in the family would drive by, pick her up, and that's it. She can go to every single event. But it's just thinking out of the box.
Yeah,
It's being willing to think out of the
Yeah.
box.
So 2 things. One, we lived on the 5th floor of an apartment building with no elevator. So you had to like carry them down in a wheelchair, like with 4 people or multiple people. So that was kind of hard. We had to like be creative about that. But the other thing I was going to mention, I forgot it.
Well, we can remember in part 2.
Oh, I was going to say what I learned from that process of bringing in the nurses and the cook and all this that was kind of like my entrepreneurial. Like I
Producing.
didn't know I was running a company. I was like, I had people on payroll.
Yeah.
I had schedules.
Yeah.
I had to give people job assignments. I had to keep track of expenses. Like that was my first business taste of like, oh, this is an entrepreneurial little company I have at home. And it was also something that helped me in my career was how to create value for my parents and make them feel good. I ended up running my whole career based on that principle of how do I create value for others. Because when I did it for them, it was the DNA that built my business acumen.
But you already were doing that. It's just now I think you were probably able to identify it because even like you say depositing in other people's trust banks and nurturing relationships, you're nurturing relationships with the admins at the hospital and the receptionist so that you could get what you needed to take care of your parents. But most people go into hospitals and they meet fire with fire. It's like, what do you mean I can't see them? And they don't realize you're never going to get anything. Like I've had to coach so many people. I'm
So
like, guys, you are not going to. Do you think that they're going to lose their job? We've never had a shortage of nurses like we have now. Do you think that you telling off that nurse and saying, I want your manager is going to do anything?
Not
First of all, we
at
don't live in the culture anymore where the customer is ever right.
You don't big time people.
We are always wrong no matter what. And in that scenario, you're definitely going to be wrong. And they're all going to have each other's backs more than they are going to have
I
it.
keep telling everyone, just watch the Soup Nazi episode of Seinfeld.
Yeah.
And when you see the character of Newman order the soup, his head is down. He's very polite.
just puts in the order,
That's right.
moves right along.
It moves right along, and he gets his soup. But
You
then
gotta
everyone
be-
else who just wants to
You
fight.
got to take niceness to a whole other level.
Yeah, but you have to read the room. Like you got to figure out what's the right temperature to get what
Yes.
you want. How do you negotiate? How do you be willing to follow the
Oh,
rules?
that's the big question. Am I going to get what I want?
Yeah.
So by reading the room, by going fire to fire. By the way, Marie, there's sometimes where I say, no, Marie, I have to bring the fire.
Yeah.
And you know that,
Yeah.
and then there's other times where it's like, this is not going to work. I have to go
No-win
the other
situation.
way. But I do tie back, and we should end, Marie, on this,
Yeah.
is the parents, in a sense, were the customers that she brought value to
Yeah.
and created a valuable experience for them, and then was able to take that out to our business, which is great, which made success.
And I will say that at the end of your life, when you look back, you know, and for some people, we have moments where we think life could be ending prematurely. And you have these moments and you look back at what you had the opportunity to do and didn't, or did. The things that matter in those moments, what I saw matter for me was the people that I helped, the good that I did. And
Who
like
you were there
said,
for.
who you were there for, not how much was in the bank. And by the way, we all want stuff in the bank, of course, but where are you going to put the most value? And your relationships and the people you love is always going to give so much more back. When you're thinking about your like life's bank account, your like heart's bank account, and what you did for your parents. And again, I give you so much credit because you were alone doing this at a young age.
Yeah.
And so I just think it's incredible. And these are the kind of people I want around me in my life. So I'm glad that you're here with us today.
Thank you.
We're going to come back for part 2, where we're going to go through the 7 rules of self-reliance, what you need to know. And by the way, I've got all my markups here that we're going to go through, which some of them we've talked about. But friends, in the meantime, be nice people, make good choices, and be present.
This podcast and all related content published or distributed by or on behalf of Maria Menounos or mariamenounos.com is for informational purposes only and may include information that is general in nature and that is not specific to you. Any information or opinions expressed or contained herein are not intended to serve as or replace medical advice, nor to diagnose, prescribe, or treat any disease, condition, illness, or injury, and you should consult the healthcare professional of your choice regarding all matters concerning your health, including before beginning any exercise, weight loss, or healthcare program. If you have or suspect you may have a healthcare emergency, please contact a qualified healthcare professional for treatment. Any information or opinions provided by a guest expert or host featured within website or on company's podcast are their own, not those of Maria Menounos or the company. Accordingly, Maria Menounos and the company cannot be responsible for any results or consequences or actions you may take based on information or opinions.